Hey everyone, welcome back to what's looking like it's going to be another busy month of interesting new PC games to play. Yeah, we are still a bit light on the big budget AAA titles. There's a couple, but most of these games are of the AA or indie variety, and it's perfectly fine because it's looking like we've got some solid new releases coming in August. Plenty to look forward to and keep us busy. There's a new survival game, a melee-focused battle royale, a skateboarding bird, some historical 4X strategy, and an absolutely gorgeous action-adventure game. We'll also be fighting hordes of xenomorphs this month, doing some turn-based RPG stuff, checking out a super unique tiny MMORPG, going on a Viking adventure, and finally stepping onto the shores of Amazon's last hope in video games. Like I said, it's a pretty busy month. I'm looking forward to a lot of what's on this list. But before we dive into any of it, let's pay my bills and get a quick word from today's sponsor. Don't skip it. Today's video is sponsored by Conqueror's Blade, the free-to-play tactical MMO set in a vast open medieval world where you pick a warlord, build an army, and battle other players to conquer and create an empire. The game features large online siege battles where you'll either have to defend your castle or go out on the offensive with your army to bring down the enemy. You can customize and create your own warlord. These are powerful commanders with 12 unique weapon classes and playstyles. There are over 80 diverse units that vary between melee, ranged, and cavalry that you can add to your army, and you'll be able to join forces with players from around the world. Now, currently they're celebrating Season 8 Dynasty and giving away 7 days of free premium time, which you can get by signing up with the link below. Season 8 Dynasty is the most recent free update and includes a host of new content inspired by the Tang Dynasty. There's a new East Asia-inspired region and city, the Pike weapon class, a new spear that dishes out long-reaching attacks. There are several new units being added to the game, a new 10 vs 10 siege map, and of course a battle pass with over 100 season exclusive rewards. So if you're interested in trying out Conqueror's Blade, checking out the new Season 8 content, and getting those free 7 days of premium, go ahead and click on the link in the description below. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go ahead and take a look at the best looking upcoming new PC games for August. As usual, I like to do these lists simply by putting them in order of release date. And starting us out near the beginning of this month is this game, Icarus. This is a session-based PvE-focused survival game set on a distant Earth-like planet. The premise here is you are a space prospector going after valuable resources, but it's really dangerous and you can't stay on the surface forever. So the basic loop of the game will be you drop in from orbit and have a limited amount of time to go around harvesting and trying to survive. Then before that time runs out, you've got to make your way back to the ship and use what you gathered to craft advanced tech. And then after that, you start a new session and go again. So you drop in, harvest, survive, return to orbit, rinse and repeat. The game will feature all of the usual survival mechanics you expect. You'll explore the environment, trying to figure out where things are located. In the beginning, gathering basic resources by picking at rocks or chopping trees, and then craft tools, which will let you harvest higher tier resources and also make weapons to hunt and defend yourself. There will be a variety of dangers you encounter on this planet, like a toxic atmosphere, savage wildlife, and deadly storms that require you to take shelter. You'll also have to seek out sources of oxygen and even hunt for food. Exploration is going to be vital. The game's map is apparently over 64 square kilometers and is completely handcrafted, and everything will be completely harvestable using voxel-based destruction. Progression in the game will come through these 3 separate tech trees. There's the planetary tech, player talents, and orbital workshop. The resources you gather are used not only to craft tools, but also make structures and machinery. And then you'll also level up and get to select from various skills to improve things like your survivability, your harvesting, or combat effectiveness. And yeah, the goal of every session is just to make the most out of the time that you have available and get back to orbit. And if you don't make it, your character is dead forever, and any progress you had is completely lost. So it's kind of hardcore in that sense. They say that there's going to be a range of different mission and session types, so lasting from a couple of hours long to days or even weeks. And again, this is a PvE focused game, and you're able to play it solo or co-op in groups of up to 8. Icarus does have some pretty cool ideas, although I have to say the gameplay that we've seen so far does look a little janky and unfinished, to say the least. I should also mention here, this is being made by Rocketworks. It's the studio founded by DayZ creator Dean Hall, so make of that information what you will. Icarus will be coming to the PC on August 11th for $29.99, and they say the game is launching with the first cohort chapter, and it's basically like the most Earth-like biome, and then more other biomes are going to be added in additional chapters down the road. I gotta say here too, between like the janky look of what we've seen so far and this planned chapter rollout, it almost sounds like they're trying to release an early access game without calling it and classifying it as early access. This better not turn into DayZ, right? All right, next up on our list is Naraka Bladepoint, a 60-player action battle royale with a focus on melee action combat and mobility. It has many of the standard battle royale features. Matches will begin with you picking a drop location on this map. You'll then go around looking for weapons, armor, and consumables while fighting off other players and avoiding the ever-shrinking circle. You'll also find these items called Soul Jades, which grant you these passive bonuses like reduced incoming damage, or you can find rare, powerful ones that actually alter the way your weapons attack. And now, as the match progresses, players will be pushed into these smaller and smaller play spaces while powering themselves up throughout the course of the match by finding better and rarer loot, and then competing ultimately to be the last one standing. Now, one of the major selling points of this game is the melee-focused combat. It uses light, heavy, and counterattacks that work together in this rock, paper, scissors fashion. Basically what's commonly seen in fighting games. So the basic light attacks will do moderate damage but are completely uncounterable, while the heavy attacks deal strong damage that will absorb any incoming light attacks and ignore them. So that's really great. However, the weakness of the heavy attacks is they can be countered. So basically, it's all about this balance in combat of constantly adjusting and choosing whether you should use a light attack, heavy attack, or a counter ability depending on what you think your opponent is going to do next. On top of that, the game's map is pretty large and has a big emphasis on its verticality and player mobility. So you can parkour on most of the environment. You have a double jump, a dash, and even a grappling hook that lets you zip around the map, accessing higher areas, or quickly move into and out of fights. There are multiple heroes to choose from, each of which have their own unique abilities and ultimates. And then there's also various styles of weapons that have their own particular attack patterns and strengths. They also, interestingly enough, have a ton of character customization. Apparently you can make, like, visually your character's face and features look pretty much however you want with the level of depth here. This one will be coming to the PC on August 12th with a base price of $19.99. And I gotta say, I think this game looks really neat, from the fighting game inspired combat to the verticality of the map and all of this player mobility. I'm just in general interested in seeing different spins on existing genres, and this is a cool meshing of like fighting game combat and battle royale gameplay mechanics. All right, moving on, we have got this game called Skatebird. It's a game about a skateboarding bird. It's adorable, and that's basically all you need to know. You'll skate around various environments at the scale that's from a bird's perspective. So you'll like grind on bendy straws or do kickflips over staplers and tear up these cardboard and sticky tape parks. I have absolutely no clue how good of a skateboarding game this will be, like say compared to the Tony Hawk or Skate series, but it's just got some super endearing look to it, like the art style, the animations of the birds in particular. I love how they flap their wings midair as they're trying to land a trick, or how pumped up they get after sticking a big trick. It's just all so funny. I love it. The game is going to have a narrative as well. Apparently you're playing as this lonely bird whose big friend had to hang up their skateboard because they got a sucky job, and your goal is to like rally up the troops and get all these birds to get your friend back into skateboarding, basically. It's just so funny, dude. I don't know. According to the Steam page here, Skatebird's features include the ability to explore lots of bird-sized parks with simple controls. You'll find fancy clothing, secret mixtapes, and other birds that need your help, and you'll skate around to this original lo-fi bird hop soundtrack, or you can drop in your own MP3s. This is coming to the PC, Xbox, and Switch on August 12th. I could not find a price. I would assume this thing has to be under $30. While it does seem like this might be one of those games that's just good for a day or two of messing around, who knows? We could be surprised. I love the style. I I love the look of this thing, and if it comes in at the right price and is fun to play mechanically, this could be a hidden gem. Moving on, our next game is Humankind, a historical 4X strategy game where you are tasked with rewriting the narrative of human history, combining cultures and navigating events to create a new, unique civilization. Basically, you start out in the Neolithic era as this nomadic tribe. You'll wander around collecting food and insight until you progress to picking your first culture. So there's going to be a ton of cultures to choose from. Each one of them has their own focus, strengths, and weaknesses, and that's going to affect how your game session plays out. Now, once you pick your first culture, this progresses you from the Neolithic era into the ancient era, and the game just branches out from there until it gets to modern day. The whole idea is that you are building and establishing your own culture. You make your own cities, you harvest resources, you play through these historically accurate narrative events, but picking how you want them to play out, and that brings you on various paths that will affect the history of your civilization. So some of the game's major features include the ability to combine up to 60 historical cultures as you move from the ancient to the modern age. You'll navigate those historical events, make decisions, research scientific breakthroughs, all of which will combine to create your own unique version of the world. Everything you do works towards that goal of acquiring fame, which is the game's unifying win condition. There is combat in the game as well. It basically plays like this mini turn-based board game. You can unstack armies and command individual troops. You can construct siege weapons and attack enemy cities. You'll fight in large battles that will span over multiple turns. And you'll also have the ability to create and customize your own civilization's leader, who will also evolve throughout the course of the game. The game also features multiplayer matches with up to 8 players. So Humankind is coming to the PC on August 17th. It is priced at $59.99. I gotta say, 4X strategy games really aren't my thing nowadays, but I do appreciate how good this thing looks, and I know there's quite a fan base for this style of game, and games in this genre don't come out very often, so I'm happy to see it, and I hope it does well. Next up, this thing I didn't know about until I put this video together, and this thing looks amazing. This is Kena Bridge of Spirits. It is a story-driven action-adventure game where you play as the spirit guide tasked with cleansing a mountain village that was overtook by a mysterious corruption. The first thing I gotta say, the look of this game just stands out so much. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, this isn't surprising after researching the developer. It's this company called Ember Lab, and they were originally an animation studio. Over the years, they've made some pretty impressive things, ranging from commercials for like Coke and the MLB to this Majora's Mask fan film that has, last I looked, over 20 million views. So this is their first fully featured video game, and I gotta say, from what we've seen so far, it's looking pretty good. Again, the main premise is you are trying to clear the corruption and restore this mountainside village. You do this by going around the environment and putting things back in order. Now, sometimes literally, like picking up statues or growing these crops, but also by defeating the corrupted enemies and cleansing this surrounding landscape. Combat is action focused as your character is able to dodge around, perform light and heavy attacks, use a water shield to parry, and eventually get access to a bow and arrow that let you target weak points of enemies. And you'll use this combat as you engage and fight with an assortment of these corrupted enemies and even large bosses, and also with the help of the game's sidekicks known as Rot. These are tiny little spirit companions that you will collect as you progress through the game. The more of them you find, the stronger they get and the more things that they can do, unlocking all sorts of new attacks and mechanics. You can use them to distract enemies, to help clean up the environment, or even focus their power and enhance your own attacks. Interacting and using these rots is apparently a big part of the game. Now, the game also has all sorts of exploration and platforming. You'll be climbing the sides of a mountain, diving deep into these cave systems, and setting out to explore the wilderness. At times, you'll find that, say, an area is blocked and you might have to solve a puzzle or unlock a new mechanic in order to get past it. All of this as you pursue and try to collect more rot, continue to cleanse the corruption, and restore order to the village. Bridge of of Spirits is coming to the PC as well as PlayStation consoles, launching on August 24th for a price of $39.99. I am just super impressed, not only with the game's look, like its visual quality, but how smooth the movement and animations and overall combat appear. It is a single player title, which isn't always my thing, but I gotta say, if I have the time this month, I absolutely want to play this. Moving on, we have Aliens Fireteam Elite. This is a co-op third-person survival shooter that is set 23 years after the events of the Aliens film, and it follows a small strike team of colonial marines who are investigating a distress call. Basically, the aliens have completely overwhelmed this planetary colony, and you and some pals have to go in and take them out. The game will focus on close quarters combat, taking place in tight corridors and small rooms, with hordes of xenomorphs swarming through the doors and vents, scrambling across the walls and ceilings, and doing their best to overwhelm you. You'll play as one of 3 Marines with access to 2 primary weapons, a sidearm, and a couple of skills, depending on the class you pick. So there's the Gunner, Demolisher, Technician, Doc, and Recon classes, each with their very own special abilities and perks. You'll choose from over 30 weapons and 70 attachments available, along with perks that will modify and improve your abilities. And you will absolutely need to use those abilities, because apparently just mowing down the aliens with your weapons won't be enough. You will have access to things like turrets and stun grenades, or body-mounted cannons and flamethrowers. All must be used strategically with your team in order to survive. There will be a variety of alien types to contend with. There are the classic face hunters and praetorians, but also things like runners who find strength in numbers and they will charge towards you in large groups, prowlers who will leap on and incapacitate players, or drones that stalk in the shadows and strike anyone who strays from the group, dealing massive damage. The game will be made up of a series of repeatable campaigns that also include these challenge card systems that will alter the approach to the mission, offering a brand new experience with multiple playthroughs. Aliens Fireteam Elite is coming to the PC, PlayStation, and Xbox consoles on August 24th for $39.99. And I gotta say, from what I've seen, it looks like we may be getting another decent Aliens game. This franchise has been really hit or miss over the years, with a few beloved games, yes, but also some complete dumpster fires. And this looks like it could be leaning in a positive direction from the gameplay I've seen. It does not look too bad, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up is King's Bounty 2. This is the much anticipated sequel to the classic turn-based RPG. This new updated version and sequel to the game mixes a strong narrative focus with third-person exploration and turn-based combat. So you're going to start off by picking from one of 3 main characters, the warrior, mage, or paladin, and then you get into selecting your starting skills, attributes, and talents, and from there, your adventure begins. You will go through the story, encountering this assortment of characters, and making choices along the way that impact the outcome and the path you take. As an example, we saw you're tasked with trying to gain access to this heavily guarded castle, and you can choose between confronting them and trying to take the castle by force, or by working with these like groups these sneaky groups of mystics to try to go in through the shadows. The combat in the game, as I mentioned, is turn-based, and it uses an initiative system, and also takes place on these grids that are layered on top of various combat terrains that you'll have to navigate and use to your advantage. So you're able to position and control these groups of units, choosing when, where, and how to engage. You can rush the enemy or reposition them and strike from the flanks, and you'll have to utilize the terrain as well as navigate environmental hazards. Units in the game will have various weaknesses, but also strengths that you can bolster by synergizing them with others. You'll also have access to this book of spells that's divided into 4 schools of magic, which will give you access to all sorts of unique abilities outside of what your combat units can do. And in addition to controlling these units, you also have your own player character. Like I mentioned at the start, you pick from one of those 3 classes, and as you progress through the game, you will level up, you will gain access to specializations and find gear and equipment to enhance your character. So it's a pretty immersive sounding RPG. This is coming to the PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch on August 24th for $49.99. I'll say that I appreciate this game's mix of third-person exploration, having it fully voiced dialogue and storytelling, and this turn-based combat. It does seem like it could be a real nice immersive RPG experience for anyone who's looking for that. The next game on the list is also really unique and interesting looking. This is called Book of Travels. It's an atmospheric online RPG that is set to take place in a hand-drawn fairy tale world where you'll experience an adventure that doesn't hold your hand. The developer says this game was inspired by genre classics and lacks the restraints of linear missions and plot lines, instead giving players the liberty to travel the free wilds and vivid cities, stumble upon hidden places, and unravel the mysteries of the world by your own accord. There's no overarching goal. There is no set beginning or end. It's basically all about exploration and discovery of this world for its own sake. They're also calling this a TMORPG, or Tiny Multiplayer Online RPG, where you will occasionally run into other real players who are also out on their own adventure, at which point you can decide if you want to work together or continue to play alone. Some of the game's major features include over 20 forms to choose from in a detailed character creator that focuses on personality and identity rather than stats and classes. They're really diverging. So you can choose if you want to be like the standard danger-seeking adventurer, or maybe you want to be a stoic practitioner of magic, or a carefree tea-drinking gambler. The choice is up to you. They're really embracing the role play here. They say the world is evolving as well, you encountering countless random events that take place that will kind of tell your own story with every play session. There are going to be tons of these intricate event chains that unlock new items, characters, and secrets, as well as hidden gameplay features depending on how you approach the world and which NPCs and stories you interact with. And like I mentioned earlier, you will periodically run into other players. In that process, the game also has this unique set of symbols that you use to communicate with others you come across non-verbally. You're also going to have access to unlock over 300 abilities, magical skills, and passive feats that will impact your character and open up all sorts of different experiences of the game. So this thing is coming to Steam Early Access on August 30th. I currently could not find a price, but boy, this is really cool looking. Like, not only does this game have a really unique look to it, but the structure and premise to me is very intriguing. Like, you're not some grand adventurer with one major plot line and quest to save the world that you're going through. You just kind of go out in the world and explore and uncover things as you will. There's nothing really pushing you besides your own choices of where you want to go. You explore, you encounter NPCs with their little stories in various pockets of the world, and at times you will run into other real players. Really, really unique sounding and looking game. I'm excited for this one. The next game on the list, I don't know a ton about, but I do love the look of. This is called Song of Iron. It's a 2D action-adventure game where we play as this hero on a mission to find the Great Temple of the Gods. The game's got action combat that will make use of the expected light and heavy attacks, and we'll be using bows, axes, and shields that we find in the environment. It also looks like you can attack from different elevations. You can block, dodge, parry, and counter your opponents. We'll be moving through these various environments from forests to caves and mountains as we progress through the story and explore these ancestral homelands. The game just has a great look, like from the lighting and atmosphere to the use of perspective in the background and foreground of these various scenes that we've seen. It looks amazing, I think, for a 2D game. Song of Iron is coming to the PC and Xbox on August 31st. It'll be priced at $19.99. Now, I still have a lot of questions. I'm not entirely sure what we can expect in terms of this game's length or the depth of the combat system, but again, it's on the list because I think it looks neat. Also, an interesting note here is that the game was developed by a single person. Now, I don't really normally consider that a selling point, as it can just mean that we should expect it to be limited in terms of scope and scale, but it's impressive nevertheless. And the 10th and final game on this month's list is Amazon's upcoming MMO, New World. Now, I've been talking about this game quite regularly for over a year now, covering most of its major updates and changes over that time. In fact, just recently I put out a fairly lengthy video discussing the biggest of those updates. But in case you haven't seen any of that and don't know much about the game, New World is a brand new MMORPG. It's set on this massive island that is completely open world, letting you travel between zones with 0 loading screens. It features an action combat system where you have to actually connect with your melee weapons, like physically hit with those spears that jab or those swords that swing. You have to aim your ranged abilities and bow attacks. There are a variety of weapons as well that basically act as classes. Each weapon has 2 skill trees that will give you access to abilities that fill certain playstyles and roles. Servers in the game hold up to 1,000 players, and those players will be divided into one of 3 factions that are all fighting for control over these territories. In those territories are these player-run cities where you'll go to pick up quests in that region, to sell items on the market, group up with other players, or engage with the game's housing system. There's PvP in the form of open world variety via the flagging system. There's also the structured 50 versus 50 wars where these guilds fight for control of the territories, and there's an endgame battleground system that's called Outpost Rush. The game does have PvE as well. That mostly consists of the overworld activities, so as you go out and quest, you'll be fighting an assortment of enemies from different factions with these normal and elite varieties. There are outdoor dungeons that are basically locations completely full of elite groups of enemies and bosses, but also recently they added instance dungeons that they call expeditions. Currently there are 6 of these in the game, each of them with a couple of boss fights and loads of trash mobs to clear through, all with the goal of getting resources and dungeon-specific loot. And finally, the game does have a big focus on gathering and crafting. Normally, this is not my sort of thing, but after playing 50 hours of the recent beta, I gotta say, I'm really enjoying it. So New World is coming to the PC on August 31st. It is priced at $39.99. And I've been loving the game. I have played a ton of the beta. I'm having a really good time. In fact, it's to the point where I'm trying to just not burn myself out because I've been playing too much, and I just want to relax and take it easy so I can hit the game hard again when it officially launches. I will absolutely be playing this game pretty obsessively for at least a few weeks. Honestly, nowadays, if I get a few solid weeks of enjoyment out of a game for a $40 price tag, I'm pretty damn happy. Now, those are the top 10 upcoming PC games that I think are worth keeping an eye on and being interested in this month. But there's a couple of betas that I want to tell you about as well. So first, there's Back 4 Blood. This is the 4-player co-op first-person shooter. It's basically Left 4 Dead in everything but name. You go in, you pick a character, and you fight back hordes of zombies with your friends. It's got a cooperative campaign. There are 8 customizable cleaners. There's competitive multiplayer, and you can actually play as the zombies in that mode. There is a beta for this game happening on August 4th, so keep an eye out for that. That's coming right up. And then also at the end of the month, we've got the beta for Corepunk. This is that top-down MMORPG that looks and plays like a MOBA, but with all of the MMO systems you expect. There's open-world PvP, dungeons, raids, and plenty of loot to collect. I am very interested in this one. I have not played a lot of top-down MMOs. I played a little bit of Albion. I know we got Lost Ark coming up, but there's something about this game that's like almost cozy feeling to me. It reminds me of a lot of the Warcraft 3 mods and RPG mods I used to play as a kid, but it's going to be like a fully fleshed out MMO. Sounds and looks cool. I'm stoked. A closed beta for this game is coming on August 25th. And with that, we are wrapping up this month's video. Those are the 10 best looking upcoming new PC games to play this month, as well as a couple of betas that I think you should know about. I've continued to really enjoy doing this series. I've really recently kind of come to the point where I'm thinking with my content, you guys can skip this part if you want, but I just want to say, I really just want to make stuff that was like useful to people nowadays when it comes to my videos. So doing these top 10 lists, doing this weekly news recap, this has all been really fun. It's really kind of reinvigorated my love of making videos again, and I've been really enjoying it, and you guys have been great. The support's been awesome. Appreciate it, as always. Thank you guys so much. Hope you like this video. I'll see you guys later, all right? Take it easy. See ya.